think we got a good enough view. Alright, torque flat 8. This could be a lockup or a non-lockup. This one happens to be a non-lockup. (9/16) on your tail housing. This one's a 4x4, so it does not have the clip that you would need to take loose for two-wheel drive. If you had a two-wheel drive, you can have a little plate that's either on the side or on the bottom in where the mount goes, and depending on what year it is, it'll be Phillips head screws or 25 Torx. And you take those two screws out, take the plate off, take the gasket off, then you can get your snap ring pliers in there, spread the snap ring out, and then your tail housing will come off. Check your bearing, make sure it's okay. In your kit, if you have a 4x4, this seal is not going to come in the kit. And there's two different ones depending on what year you got. One's larger than the other, so make sure if you have a 4x4 you order you a rear seal. Three-quarters on the band adjustment nut. One inch on the neutral switch. There are different lengths of these pins depending on what year you have. For your neutral switch, I would go ahead and replace it. They always leak. This is the short pin. There is a long pin. Depending on what year yours is the nut here or the bolt. This one here is 7/16. It could be 1/2 inch. The one for your throttle rod is 7/16. You want to move your linkage back and forth. There's a fair amount of play there. I mean, this is pretty good. If you can get it to rock back and forth, the case is worn out or the linkage goes up through from the valve body to the case. They do make a piece that you can put underneath the linkage seal that kind of shores that up and makes it a little bit firmer. Help keep it from leaking. 1/2 inch on our pump bolts. On the pan. Metal in there, a lot of metal, aluminum too. Alright, depending on what yours is, your filter bolts and your valve body bolts, these will always be 7/16. These other bolts could be 25 Torx, Phillips, or flathead. Get in here on your valve body. Let's get this move over and look at your ball. You got a fair amount of play right there. I don't know. This valve body's really pretty worn, but odds of finding one are going to be slim. I'm going to have to see if we can fix this, but look at your ball in here, and I don't know if you can see that. It's getting to be a fair amount of play back and forth. You will always have some, but that's getting a little bit to the excessive side. They do make a sleeve kit that you can put in here. Sonax makes it, so you have to have the reamer to ream it, but they do make it. So we get that, and I don't know if I can fix that or not. We may have to try to find us a valve body. Of course, it depends on how much other damage we have in here, whether we're even going to be doing this training. Band strut, check your accumulator, make sure it's not cracked. The early ones were aluminum. And we'll go ahead and leave that in there for right now. You can get in here, pop your pump out, or on the front, there's 2 bolt holes that have threaded holes. You can get a slide hammer on that. I just get in here and pop it out. Look in here where your ring rides from your drum. If you have one, it depends on what year you have, whether it'll have a ring that rides there or not. Make sure it's not ring cut. Check your bushings. Where these rings ride inside here, you want to make sure that's not all ring cut. Half-inch bolt on the pump. Check your surface here, make sure it's not all eat up. Check the surface of your gears, and you can go ahead and mark them. Most of your earlier torque flights did not matter which way you put your pump gears. but it's always good to get in the habit of marking everything so you can check after the fact and make sure it was put in there the way it was supposed to have been originally, and then make sure you're doing it right when you're going back. Check your surface here. You're really going to want to clean this up and check in between the gear here, in between your lobes, and you want to check your end clearance on the top. You'll need straight edges for that, so, and feeler gauges. I always put a bushing tube on, so I don't really worry too much about the bushings. Front bands usually always flake off, so no matter, I mean, this looks pretty good. Most people would run that again. I do not. I always put a front band in. Our front planet's really chewed up. Alright, we got thrust washer here. We do have the sealing ring that goes here, so make sure that your ring lands are all okay. Ooh, our bell plate come apart on our forward drum. Looks like somebody's been abusing the hell out of this. Maybe a teenage kid and mama and daddy's Grand Wagoneer. Your flat snap ring here. You need a pressure plate and steels. Actually, there's 2 pressure plates in this one. Our bell plate is totally destroyed. So we need both pressure plates. Whew. What a mess. See if we can find the end of our snap ring here. This one is a wavy snap ring. It's got a deep wave to it. Alright, our ring is broke too. I kind of expected that. Ring goes underneath the snap ring. We're going to need that. Hub. Wonder if our piston is okay. Probably going to have to clean a lot of this up. Double check everything in here. This is earlier model. Has a bushing in the back here. Not all did. It has a 3-tab washer. Most of the washers are different. They are still 3-tab, but they look different than this. All this has to match. The washer has to match the drum. The back of the input shaft or forward drum has to match the output shaft here. There's different styles there. So make sure if you change any of that out that you are matching all that up. We have a shim. And you need a pair of snap ring pliers. Alright, we're going to need a front planet. A ring gear is probably okay. That, technically you could reuse that if you was in a bind, but I would not. Alright, check your sun gears. Make sure they're not pitted. These do like to pit. Make sure that your gear is not too much movement in here. I mean, that's okay. There's a little bit there. It'll work. Thrust washer. Rear planet. Check your pinions. They don't want too much wobble. We'll make sure that they do spin free, that they're not pitted, and not too much up and down movement. Alright, depending on the year, this band drum in the back could have a snap ring holding it. Thrust washer here. Everything looks okay there. Our Sprag is wiped out. If it'll fall apart like that, usually this race stays in here. If when you pull this race out, it just falls apart and your springs are kind of all mushed together, you need to go ahead and change that Sprag out. I would change it out anyway. It's pretty cheap, especially this style. So just go ahead and redo it. Pull your band strut out of there. Pull your band out. This is a hard band, meaning it's rigid. Some of the really early ones are really thick, and if they're glazed over, you can just get a piece of fine emery cloth and take the glaze off of it, but this one looks pretty good shape. Band strut out of there. Check your governor support. You don't actually have to take this out if you don't want to. 1/2-inch bolts hold that in. There are different styles depending on the year. There's 4-bolt, and they went to a 6-bolt later on. And those are 3/8 that is held in by there. This is pretty chewed up where that band drum goes. The surface still looks pretty good on our drum. I think we can hone that out. This governor support's going to need to be replaced. Alright, the only thing left in here is our servos and our governor. I leave the governors together until I get ready to clean them up. You're going to want to check the lands on these valves and make sure that they're not all worn. If they are, you're going to need to replace the whole thing. Get our servos out of here. These are under tension, so be careful when you do take it out. You're going to want to look inside of here and see if this thing's cracked. They do make a steel one. It's mostly on diesels that they crack on these. You get into the later model ones and they do tend to crack a little bit, but on the older ones, hardly ever. Ouch. Alright, I may have to move this off of camera to get this out of there. or snap ring or spring. You can leave your levers in there unless you want to change them. To get the front one out, there's a plug in the front. You take out the back one, you just shove this thing out and it'll come out. There are 2 O-rings on there you're going to want to change when you go to rebuild it. There's a snap ring down the side of here. Go ahead and pull that out of there. Go ahead and take that out. Usually none of this is bad. Go ahead and take this out. This is the other wavy snap ring. It's not near as wavy as the other one. Make sure your steels are not warped and not any bad hot spots on them. Clutches are pretty much gone on this. On this one here, you're gonna have to compress these springs down and take your snap ring out and your retainer. Depending on what year you have is how many springs are in there. I always go back with 9, so you can do it however you want. You do 3, skip 2, do 3, skip 2, do 3, skip 2, and then your piston will come out of there. Other than that, I guess normally I wouldn't do another rebuild video. I already have a rebuild video of the TorqueFlite 8, but the camera was a lot further away, so I will do a rebuild video of this and we'll be up much closer. So we'll catch you on the rebuild video. This one here, we're going to need LS kit, which is a kit with clutches, front band, bushing kit, probably put a washer kit in it. Going to need both pressure plates for the forward drum, that washer that goes underneath the snap ring, forward steels, forward planet, bevel plate, governor support, 4x4 rear seal. See what I can do about this linkage on the valve body, get the sleeve for the ball, and I think that's about, oh, the neutral switch. I guess that's about it. We'll see you on the rebuild.